China is suddenly finding itself in a fix. Its cyber or psychological warfare with India over doklam seems to have boomeranged on Beijing. While India has dug its heel at doklam not letting China to further its salami-slicing policy in the eastern sector of the border, U.S. President Donald Trump has turned heat on North Korea, putting the dragon in a bind. Chinese army has stayed put at doklam, claiming that the land belongs to it, while Indian army is holding its position merely 150 meters across, saying the area is under the control of Bhutan. Since first week of June, China has propagated the narrative that India transgressed its territorial integrity and asked New Delhi to withdraw its troops for any dialogue. Though diplomatic channels have been working, and reports suggest that progress has been made on doklam front, but the sudden rise in temperature over North Korea has pushed China on the back foot. This was why Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke to Donald Trump, urging him not to escalate tension in the region. The North Korea crisis. North Korea is largely perceived as rogue state in the international circles, for which Pyongyang blames the United States. North Korea has been on a mission to increase its military prowess and arm itself with deterrent nuclear warheads, fearing that it may face the same fate as Iraq and Afghanistan at the hands of the U.S. North Korea tested intercontinental ballistic ICBM missile last month. Claiming successive ICBM test fire, North Korea proclaimed that it had attained the capability to strike deep inside the U.S. territory. A few days ago, North Korea threatened to attack Guam, the U.S. island near Philippines. The U.S. has vital military establishment in Guam. Donald Trump responded by saying that if North Korea tried to target any of the U.S. assets, it would be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. Donald Trump followed it with a tweet, saying, "Military solutions are now fully in place, locked and loaded, should North Korea act unwisely. Hopefully Kim Jong-un will find another path." The entire world knows that China has been the force behind North Korea. It is China which equipped North Korea with modern military technology and helped develop its nuclear program. China is largely seen as a guide to North Korea. The message from Donald Trump was not lost on China, which called for ensuring peace in North Korea at a time when its officials were harping on the rhetoric of 1962 war, size of economy and military might of China over doklam standoff with India. What is at stake for China? There is growing sense in Chinese establishment, as reports suggest that the doklam standoff has gone wrong for them. The war with India has been met with what the U.S. called mature diplomatic handling by Indian External Affairs Ministry. With North Korea crisis boiling over, China fears a possible use of nuclear weapon by either side. China has huge investment in North Korea and a greater strategic stake in the country, but for past couple of years Beijing has felt it difficult to control North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. This was why China supported the U.S.-sponsored sanctions against North Korea recently. But, should the U.S. and North Korea go to war, China would be left with no alternative but to jump in the defense of North Korea, not only to protect its own boundary but also to make sure that Kim Jong-un regime does not use any weapons of mass destruction. The North Korean crisis may spill over the East China Sea and the South China Sea, where China is already facing resistance from member countries. The North Korean crisis could not have come at a worse time for China. And Donald Trump's posturing has caught China completely off guard. Meanwhile, due to effective diplomatic handling by the External Affairs Ministry, the US and the UK seem to be more on India's side than Chinese over doklam. In an Ian's interview recently, India-born UK politician Meghnad Desai claimed that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump were in direct touch over doklam standoff. China softened at doklam after having maintained in public statements that Indian troops must withdraw from doklam before talks could happen at any level. China has held bilateral talks with Indian representatives. Most notable of the talks was the held when National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing last month. Reports from doklam also suggested last week that Chinese side had agreed to move back its troops 100 meters from the site of standoff, but India insisted on withdrawal by at least 250 meters before Indian army pulled back its soldiers. Officially, China denied these reports as planted by Indian government. Meanwhile, the border personnel meeting (BPM) took place yesterday at Nathula Mountain Pass in Sikkim. The closure of Nathula for the Kailash Mansarovar pilgrims in June had brought the doklam standoff at the center stage. It is understood that the doklam standoff featured during the meeting. The BPM had been put in place to sort out local issues in order to ensure peace along the border. The BMP was set up to discuss 5 points: Daulat Bagoldi in northern Ladakh, Kabitho in Arunachal Pradesh, Chusal in Ladakh, Bumla near Twang in Arunachal Pradesh, and Nathula in Sikkim. The BMP marks a shift in Chinese stand, giving another signal that Beijing is looking for an honorable exit from doklam. China is also mindful of the fact that Indian army is sitting at the heights while Chinese People's Liberation Army is occupying the lower ground at doklam, giving clear advantage to the former. Also read Doklam standoff, why India is justified in upping ante against China in Sikkim. Arunachal Doklam standoff as India-China war of words continues. A look at how global media is reporting it beyond doklam, how China is winning over India's neighbors with money, arms. Also watch Doklam standoff. Will conflict with India be disastrous for China?